Lights on. It's time to start Curb Cuts.
Curb Cuts is produced by the Central Coast Assistive Technology Center, made possible by donations from Cal Poly CPTV and Slow Public Access, funded by grants from the Christopher Reeve Foundation, Go Forward, the San Luis Obispo County Community Foundation, For Good Forever, and the California Endowment, increasing access to healthcare for all Californians. Curb Cuts is also sponsored by Mac Superstore. And now, Curb Cuts.
Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Curb Cuts. I'm John Lee, and this is Paul Mortola. We're of the Central Coast Assistive Technology Center, and the hosts of this show about assistive technology and how this technology enables people with disabilities to live as independently as possible. For those of you who are tuning into the show for the first time, Curb Cuts refers to a break in the sidewalk that allows a person in a wheelchair to go from the street to the sidewalk without having to deal with that barrier. So we're using the name Curb Cuts as a metaphor for assistive technology, which is any device that removes a barrier to access for a person with a disability. Similarly, since curb cuts are used by more than just people with wheelchairs, assistive technology is something that can also lead to widespread use by mainstream society. So we'll try to tie that in with some of the technology that we showcase today. Today's focus is on assistive technology for people who are blind, and that population comprises over 1 million people in this country. So today we're going to introduce you to two individuals in our community who are blind, Benavidez and Gail, who are going to tell you a little bit about how assistive technology allows them to live as independently as possible. The technology that they're going to show you today allows them to use their sense of hearing or their sense of touch to get access to the information that they need. So you'll notice that today's episode is subtitled for people who are deaf and hard of hearing, and this is an attempt to make our show as accessible as possible to all viewers. We also have an audio-described version of this show for people with visual impairments, and this can be accessed at our website, ccatc.org.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of how we look at curb cuts and how this has been around in our history for a long time. For example, the typewriter that we've all used for many, many years, and that's been a standard kind of way for us to produce text, really was invented and designed for individual who had a vision impairment, who was blind. And this technology was back in the 1800s, the early 1800s, when the individual designed this typewriter for his love of his life so that she, who was blind, could communicate with him. The typewriter was used so that there was no ink at the time, and there was a piece of carbon paper that was used to imprint on the paper. And this was really kind of the introduction to typed text back in the early 1800s. So it's a very interesting start to kind of where our computers have come to in this day and age, that we use computers for almost every kind of text that we possibly can do. This is just a really great example of where there was a technology that was developed for someone who had a disability and then has turned into a product that has been used worldwide in all sorts of different kinds of, for different reasons and different technology. So that's just a good example of kind of curb cuts and how it's affected our world as we live it today. How does someone who's blind use a computer? If you're blind, you don't have that option to use the monitor, and you have to rely on other pieces of technology to assist you with that. Individuals who are blind will predominantly rely on speech output of their computer or on tactile sense, which would be a refreshable Braille display. Braille, of course, is a system used to read with your fingers. Now we'd like to introduce Benavidez, who is going to show us his ability to use a computer and his technique of how he uses a computer without his vision.
Hey, hello, my name is Benavidez. I'm 46 years old, almost 47. I am considered legally blind. I have what's called a retinitis pigmentosa. And I started coming here to Braille in Santa Barbara in December of 1991. I was a mechanic, carpenter, plumber, electrician, truck driver, you name it. If you'd have told me in 2000 how to turn a computer on, I would have looked at you cross. I'd go, huh? Well, right now I'm the front desk receptionist. I take phone calls, take notes. I do some scheduling on a computer there with a screen reader. I transfer calls, all the simple stuff a receptionist would do, except none of it is with vision. And I do mean none of it. The telephone itself I actually have memorized where all the buttons are. The other day somebody was asking me, how is it you know what line is ringing, because there's 10 lines. I go, hey, if the first one, when I hit that button and the first one ain't it, I go to the second one down. If that still ain't it, then I go to line 10, because that means it's in-house. It's just a process of elimination that only takes about 3 seconds. That if someone doesn't know what I'm doing, they think it's real fast. I'm using a screen reader called JAWS, which stands for Job Access with Speech. All this does is it reads text on that screen. For example, if I open up a Word document, it'll read to me word by word, letter by letter, or sentence by sentence, whatever I tell it to do, depending on the key command I give it. Same thing with Excel. I can go on the internet and do search things up where the screen reader will tell me where I'm at. It'll read the links off to me if I up arrow, down arrow. There are certain key commands where I can tell it to search for something I'm looking for and just type it in and hit enter, and bam, there we go.
Documents, 1 of 12. To move the items, use the arrow keys. Now, Microsoft Internet Explorer, 1%. 100%.
Oh, it's
Express yourself. Email address : edit. Email address : edit. Press enter for forms mode.
Press enter forms
Enter
mode.
forms mode on. ELPICOSO. 6 1 at HOTMAIL period COM tab password : password edit stop tab forgot your password tab sign in but enter forms mode off page has no links.
That's a good sign when it says that.
Page has 5 frames and 53
I'm in.
links.
Thinking about 1995, we had one of the volunteer teachers here introduced me to something similar to JAWS, but it wasn't JAWS. It was called Echo something or other. That's where I first was introduced that a screen reader does exist. However, I didn't get fully involved into computers until about 2001, when he actually gave me one of his old computers, and after that I just went to town with it. Every month I learn a new key command that's always been there. I just had no idea it was there. Using JAWS, there's a key command for links list. I can do insert F7 and bam, all of a sudden there's nothing but links, a whole list of them. Where standard computer users, they don't have that option. They go, man, we got to scroll down through all this junk, and you can go right to it. I go, it's too bad Windows doesn't create that for you. I have a scan reading software, which is called OpenBook. I also have Kurzweil. I use that one. Oh my God, I mean, I have printers, scanners. I've put whatever I can in there, dollar bills, $20 bills, mail. I see what it can or can't read. My best luck with it is just copying books. You know, if I want to read a book that has not been put on disk yet, I can scan 2 pages at a time and get it down into a Word document, where JAWS will read it for me.
Slow Public Access Studio Guest Model Release Agreement. The undersigned enter into this studio guest model release agreement with and between Charter Communications TSIO Public Access and or their designees, L/we have been informed and T/we understand that PT&T.
Here on my side I keep a digital recorder. This is a Panasonic QR240. Very small. This thing I've had for 5 years now, just this one in particular, because it's real nice. All I have to do is when I need to take a message is hit a button and start talking. Say hello to me there, John.
Hello.
Okay, there it is. Let's see if I got it.
Hit a button, start talking. Say hello to me there, John. Hello.
Crystal clear. Every day I work with people. They call me or I have to call them to get them past where they're at using their screen readers. Because it's like anything else. I've been using it for so much and so long that it's real easy, where other people are just struggling real hard. Believe it or not, I'm still hung up on computer stuff. The bug has got me. So most of my every moment is just working on that, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and I'm real into that. The biggest problem I have, like when I'm walking to or home from work sometimes, is some people mean to be helpful and they start stopping traffic or they try and guide me across the street. Usually they ask if I need help and I tell them no thank you, I'm fine, that's excellent, but some people actually grab me and I have to ask them, please don't do that. It actually becomes more dangerous when they try and drag me across the street because they don't look for the cars coming. I do. I listen for them. I'm amazed at how many people almost walked me in the traffic. The very first time I came in here was in 1988. I came to visit just to check it out, but I ran like crazy after I spent just a few minutes here. I was still in denial. that what was going on was going on. But 3 years later, I came back, glad I did. At that time, I was still struggling with the fact that I was losing my vision. I was in extreme denial. In fact, I started getting confronted with that within the first couple of months, not because they wanted me to, because it was eating away at me, so I started confronting it. And luckily, the counselor here at the time was willing to, go head on with me on that issue. I'm glad the counselor was here, because it got me through a lot of stuff at that time, where if I had not had that person, who knows where I'd be right now. I wouldn't be here with this job if it weren't for this technology. I don't know. All I can assume is I might be working in some mini little sweatshop somewhere, counting Band-Aids and who knows what, and just sort of be wasting away. I would like for most web designers to label their graphics, even if it's invisible text, as long as JAWS knows it's there and can read it. That would be excellent, because JAWS cannot read graphics. It just says graphic. So whatever that is, even if it says click here to go to this link and it's just a graphic saying it, JAWS doesn't know what that is. What I would really like to see is see some of these companies come talk to me and ask what does or does not work, rather than what some of their sighted workers think that we need. I see that too much, where someone says, oh, they're blind, they can't use that, or, well, I can see it right there, why do they have a problem with it? I'd rather have them come talk to me. If Window Eyes keeps up doing the great job it's doing, it's going to go places. I wish some of the other companies would try that themselves or really start moving forward. And I'm not that good with Window Eyes yet, but the potential's there. Well, I'll tell you what, my experience when I first started losing my vision, I did find there were some people who, I was so depressed because of it and angry, that when I did see somebody who was making it, it did give me some hope. So I try and put myself out there to let them know that there is some sort of hope, but it's a rough road.
Curb Cuts will be right back after this message from the California Telephone Access Program.
What? Please speak up. What are you saying?
Do you have difficulty hearing on the telephone or any other problem using the phone? Use one of these specialized phones free from the state of California.
Hello?
Amazing phones which flash incoming calls and turn up the volume so you can hear. Phones with big buttons, easy to see and use. Phones that display conversation as text, allow hands-free calling, that remember numbers and more. These phones help anyone who has difficulty hearing, seeing, moving, remembering, or speaking. Thousands of people use them because these amazing phones are free to California residents who need them. So help yourself, a friend, or family member. Call 1-800-806-1191 for the California Telephone Access Program.
So Greg's story gives you a little bit of an insight into some of the technology that's available for computer users who are blind. Now, Greg mentioned that he uses JAWS and OpenBook and Kurzweil 1000. There's also another prominent screen reader available called Window Eyes, and that's also for PC users and uses a different set of keystrokes but allows access to the computer in nearly a full capacity. And for those Mac users out there, don't give up hope on the fact that there's JAWS and Window Eyes are not available for Macs. And the recent Mac OS 10.4, the Tiger version, they now have a built-in program that's a screen reader called VoiceOver. And while it's not necessarily as fully featured as JAWS and Window Eyes now, that's an interesting product to continue to watch, and hopefully will continue to develop with coming versions of Mac OS.
It's perfect for those who have never used a computer or screen reader before, for those who are new to Macintosh, and for those using screen readers on Mac OS 9 and want to take advantage of all Mac OS 10 has to offer.
One of the issues that Greg brought up in his story was the issue of accessibility of the web. And as we know, information, products, services, entertainment is increasingly being made available on the web. However, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily easily readable by screen readers that people use who are blind. Unfortunately, the digital divide is such that there are still many more people using computers who don't have disabilities than those who do. And we can close that divide by making sure that websites are more easily readable to screen readers. And there are a number of ways to do that. A good resource online to give web developers and web designers some tips on how to do that is the Web Accessibility Initiative. And you can actually check that out at w3c.org/WAI. And some of the tips they talk about are basically having equivalents, text equivalents to images and animations on your web page. Making sure the links that you use are specific enough and they give enough information as opposed to just click here. And of course making sure that your web page is navigable by keyboard, because that's what a person who uses a screen reader must use to get around. Fortunately, some of the mainstream web companies out there are trying to reach out more to people with disabilities, including Google. They actually recently developed a search engine that places priority on web pages that have been designed to be as accessible as possible. And that web address is labs.google.com/accessible. And you'll get an idea of, when you do a search on that site, of what pages come up on that information that may be a little more readily or easily readable by screen readers. The other big issue with web accessibility is, of course, the curb cut idea. And that is that when we design web pages to be as accessible as possible to people with disabilities, there tends to be advantages for others that access the web. And for example, increasingly cell phones have access to the web, and PDAs and so forth. And when you have a web page that doesn't have an overwhelming amount of graphics and animations, it makes those pages easy to access on those smaller devices. And then people with slower internet connections tend to have an easier time accessing a web page that is designed with people with disabilities in mind. Now we'd like to introduce you to Gail Kennedy, who is going to highlight specifically how she uses assistive technology to live independently in her home.
My name is Gail Kennedy, and I live here in Morro Bay. I lost my sight 2 years ago in June. I had a central retinal vein occlusion, and I did literally wake up without my sight. And I was working at the Children's Center at Cal Poly, and I decided to leave that job and kind of readjust to my new life here. Well, some of the ways that I adjusted, I would have to say, first of all, it was the great love and support of family and friends, and a strong faith, and that's kind of what got me going. O&M training, which is orientation and mobility training, where I learned to use the white cane. So Department of Rehab supplied me with an instructor for that, and another training that was supplied to me through the Department of Rehab was computer training, so that I could learn the JAWS program, which is a talking computer program.
From : John Lee, subject : read : curb cuts filming. Page has 4 links.
Another program that I now have is Talking Checkbook, and that is an excellent program because anytime I need to write a check or deposit money or withdraw money, I can keep track of it. It keeps my balance going for me, and that is something I really love. Another program on my computer is called Open Book, and this allows me to scan any printed document or printed page. So in other words, when I get a bill in the mail, I can open up my bill and it will read my bill from top to bottom.
December 2005, there is God's love for you wherever you are.
Another device that I have is called, well, it's a color identifier, and it's really nice. Well, it's good for anything but particularly clothes. So as I would put the actual color identifier, which we will look at later, just say on my sweater here, it would tell me what color it is.
Pale beige, pale beige,
It's just not total perfection, but it's really an excellent device. This was a really great step forward to kind of, you know, when I didn't have someone around to say, what color is this? You know, it would tell me, or at least it would give me enough of a clue that I'd be like, oh yes, I remember, you know, what that dress is or whatever. Another one of my favorite pieces of equipment is the Parrot VoiceMate, and I use that every day too. It has a phone number function. I just say the name, and then it asks me if I want to either record that name or find the name, and it gives me the phone number.
CCATC.
Would you like to memorize CCATC? CCATC 5 4 9 7 4 2 0.
So that's how I bring up a number.
Another piece of equipment that I have is called the Voila Labeler, and if you'll picture a barcode, that's what this is. You take another little piece of equipment and you scan it over the labeler, and if you have recorded something, it tells you what it is.
Comfort keeper.
Oh, I have talking clocks and a talking watch, and everything talks to me.
The time is now 6 minutes to noon.
I love getting together with my family and my friends, and recently, within a year and a half, I went back to kayaking, and I also play the piano, but since I always played by sight, I have to learn to play now by ear. This has really launched me forward. I am not sure quite where I would be without it. It has enabled me to just go on with my life really in a very normal way. All this technology is a huge step of progress, and again, it has just made me go forward with leaps and bounds.
Curb Cuts will be right back after this message from the California Telephone Access Program.
Now, I love my mom, but she's hard of hearing. Isn't that right, Mom?
Yes, but
So
actually...
when I call, she might not hear the phone ring or what I'm saying.
Yes, but...
But then we got this amazing free phone. It flashes lights, it rings like a fire alarm, it has the volume of a jet engine. If you need a phone like this for free, call the California Telephone Access Program.
Oh, I love the phone. I just wish there was one for children who have trouble listening.
As you can see, Gail used many different kinds of technologies that speak to her, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for the kinds of technologies that's available, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of those. There are other technologies like the Note Teller, which is a product designed for individuals who are blind to be able to read the type of bill that they have, the type of money bill that they have. So it's a $1 bill or a $5 bill, $10 bill. This simple device allows them to slide the bill into the device and it speaks back what the bill is. As you might imagine, this is a critical need for individuals who are blind that need to know how much the bill is worth and when they're shopping and when they're purchasing items. Another good example of curb cuts is talking ATMs. Talking ATMs we all use ATMs. Talking ATMs speak back to individuals who are using the ATM who may not be able to see the screen. And as you can imagine, this is a very valuable access point for somebody who needs to access the bank.
We also want to tell you about a new and exciting assistive technology device that recently became available called the KNFB Reader. And this is a portable talking scanner that basically acts like a digital camera. A person who is blind can take this with them anywhere, to a restaurant to read a menu, or to the library, anywhere they're needing to access printed material. And this device will take a picture of that material and speak it out loud to them.
Case 4. Economic consequences of communist systems. Although the capitalist system led to prosperity in much of the world, there were some people, especially Karl Marx, who felt that capitalism would eventually be replaced by socialism. He He felt that the wealth of capitalism should be distributed more evenly, and that the people should own businesses and farms collectively. Socialism got a real boost in the 1930s, when the United States went through the Great Depression. Government involvement in the economy increased greatly in the United States, and even more so in socialist countries. As a consequence, shortages and surpluses occur in many goods and services. A major problem of communism is that the suppression of freedom also takes away the incentive to produce quality goods, and to maintain them. Therefore, many goods produced in communist countries are of inferior quality and suffer from lack of service. Government directives simply cannot motivate people to work as hard and as carefully as the profit motive.
Some of the devices that you saw Gail use, we also have those at the center. There are many different kinds of technology. We have several medical devices, such as blood pressure cuffs that actually speak to you as it takes your blood pressure. We have heart rate monitors that have voice output, and we have glucose monitors that are used for individuals who have vision impairments so that you can hear the blood sugar level that you have.
98 milligrams per deciliter.
The demonstration center is free to anyone in our San Luis Obispo County and northern Santa Barbara County. So we welcome anyone to come into the center. You can access our center by giving us a call at 549-7420, or you can visit us on the web at ccatc.org.
So in today's episode, we really only touched on the wide range of technology that's available for people who are blind. But if you're interested in seeing more of this technology, in addition to stopping by our demo center, there is an abilities fair that's coming up here in San Luis Obispo at the Vets Hall on September 21st, and there will be a number of vendors there with technology, assistive technology for people who are blind or have low vision. Another event that we wanted to let you know about that's coming up on October 26th is the 30th anniversary of the Independent Living Resource Center, which serves people with a variety of disabilities, including people with visual impairments. And we actually share office space with the Independent Living Resource Center, so you'll want to check that out. And we'd like to finish today's episode with showing you our friend Maisha Thomas using our motorized beach wheelchair down at Avila Beach. And to remind you that this beach wheelchair is available to anyone with a mobility impairment, and it's free of charge. If you're interested in more information about checking out this beach wheelchair, please give us a call at 549-7420. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and hope you tune in for the next one. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for watching.
For more information about the technology you saw in this episode, please visit our website, www.ccatc.org, and click on Curb Cuts.